governor's letter. He said Montanans who struggle with their gender identity deserve love, compassion, and respect. That's not what trans Montanans need from you. We need access to the medical care that saves our lives. And the only thing I will say is if you vote yes on this bill and yes on these amendments, I hope the next time there's an invocation, when you bow your heads in prayer, you see the blood on your hands.
That was Montana State Representative Zoe Zephyr, who was censured, which means she was banned from the House floor after speaking out against a bill that would ban gender-affirming care for transgender youth. Please welcome Representative Zoe Zephyr.
One year later.
Bring you a bit of breaking news which may be of interest to some of you. It's about puberty blockers. Now, these are drugs that are used to delay the changes of puberty in transgender youngsters. In terms of how they are prescribed by the NHS, there has been a lot of controversy over the last few years about this. At the moment, they are only prescribed to children attending gender identity services as part of clinical research, and they are not routinely offered to children at gender identity clinics, but they are still offered. Well, the government, NHS England, has just confirmed that children will no longer be prescribed puberty blockers at gender identity clinics. This is coming from NHS England. It just broke in the last few moments.
England just banned puberty blockers for all children, all minors, putting an end to a lot of the gender-affirming care and transition therapy that kids are undergoing when they transition from one gender to another. This happens on D-Trans Day, actually a new day created to commemorate the transition, particularly of children from one gender to another who regret it, and later in life try to detransition, even though in many instances they'll never be the same again. And many of them, two young women like Chloe and Katie, who I met earlier on the campaign trail, have actually expressed their regrets in a way that at least warns other kids to prevent them from making some of those same decisions.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. This right here, guys, is a big story, because stories like this really makes you question the American medical establishment and whether or not our so-called medical professionals are to be trusted, okay? Are they actually really working in the goal of trying to protect people, or are they just trying to make money by any means necessary, okay? Because I have made the argument that the main reason why we're seeing this push from the medical establishment to try to pretend like so-called gender-affirming care is safe and totally legitimate and you shouldn't question it at all, okay, in regards to the science or whether or not it's safe, is because it opens up a whole new market, okay? I mean, if you put one child on so-called puberty blockers and gender-affirming care, and they end up going through the whole transition, then you're going to be getting a $100,000+ patient for life. Who knows? Maybe even millions of dollars, okay, depending on the needs of that individual, okay? You're going to be getting a stream of income for the next 50, 60, 70 years because this person is going to be a medical patient for the rest of their life. Again, the capitalist incentive is clearly and obviously there for the American medical establishment to get on board with this agenda. And there's also the political incentive and motivation, because you have the far left woke activists that are coming out here and saying that if you do not agree with drugging kids up before they hit puberty, then you are responsible for kids dying, okay? You have blood on your hands if you do not agree with gender-affirming care for children.
Last week, I spoke on the governor's amendments to Senate Bill 99, which banned gender-affirming care. This was a bill that was one of many targeting the LGBTQ community in Montana. So when I rose up and said, there is blood on your hands, I was not being hyperbolic.
Yeah, blood on your hands. Blood on your hands. Because according to this individual, these things are completely 100% safe. Don't question it. If you question it, then you're anti-trans. You're responsible for children dying. Okay, this is what they say, right? And then you have some people who are reasonable that have spoke out about this, like Dr. Phil, who is telling the truth about how, no, we actually really don't know enough about the use of these drugs and how they're going to affect children and whether or not they're actually really even effective at improving the mental health outcomes of kids who are suffering from gender dysmorphia. Take a look.
It's interesting they choose words like gender-affirming care. That's interesting that they call it that, but really what they're talking about is hormonal therapy or sex reassignment surgery on children. And in fairness, the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Endocrine Society, or whatever the exact name of that is, all of the major medical associations have signed off on this, Joe. They've signed off on it. And I have never seen those organizations sign off on anything with less information as to whether or not it does long-term harm of anything in my life. And when I ask about that, when I bring that up, then they immediately label you as transphobic. And I thought that the deal was first do no harm. And all of the European countries, Sweden, Norway, they've all stopped doing it because they say, we cannot say in good conscience that this does no harm, because it does harm. If you look at the long-term consequences, if someone changes their mind at 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, they can't decide which pajamas they want to wear at night. And their reason for doing it is it stops this drive for suicide, that there's a suicide epidemic. It doesn't fix that. It doesn't fix all the comorbid issues that come along with feeling like they're in the wrong body. But yet they're pushing this. And we're going to do some shows that are already taped that are revealing what the real results of this are. And I think people are going to be shocked that these medical organizations have signed off on this. I think they've just given in to the pressure.
And again, I mean, clearly there's a woke capitalistic incentive, okay? It's not just the pressure from the far left. There, again, is the political incentive. Of course, you don't want to be called transphobic, but also on top of that, you can make some money off of this, okay? Because every patient is potentially, a lifetime patient. You're going to get paid into perpetuity having to continuously treat these people when they undergo these potentially irreversible medical treatments, right? And, the writing's on the wall here in regards to whether or not these things are completely safe or do they actually cause harm. I think that the latter is probably most likely, because now you have England's National Health Service coming out and issuing a bombshell ban on puberty blockers for kids. Now, England is just one of many European countries who are now getting on board with understanding that, hey, you know what? This is not as safe as people are letting on, especially the American medical community. And I think that this news really calls into question the integrity of the American medical community, because other Western nations in Europe are saying, no, we're not on board with this. This is not safe. But yet the whole medical establishment is saying that it's safe. Again, there's a disconnect here. Clearly and obviously, the American medical community is not being motivated by science, right? They're being motivated by politics and money, right? And I think that this news right here coming out of England, I think adds to that idea that what we're hearing from the medical establishment in America isn't something that we can necessarily trust. And I think it does really damage the reputation of our American medical professionals. Again, so this is bombshell news here. England's National Health Service banned the use of puberty blockers for children seeking treatment for gender dysphoria, citing limited research. Puberty blockers, or gonadotropin releasing hormone analogs, is a class of drugs that suppresses sex hormones in adolescents by continually stimulating the pituitary gland. It will now only be available to children in limited ways, such as clinical trials. I mean, honestly, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. I'm not even sure it should be available when you're talking about clinical trials, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I don't think we should be experimenting on children. But then again, the clinical trials are in the name of science, okay? And, I think that at the end of the day, if it's only limited to studying, hey, it is what it is. But in terms of just giving it out willy-nilly, nah, they definitely shouldn't be doing that. And I think that this is definitely a step in the right direction. Now, remember, again, this is not some homophobic, Islamic, or third world country. This is England, okay? This is first world Western country that is doing this, okay? And England's woke, okay? Keep in mind, the people that are running this thing, they're woke, okay? But even they know that, hey, this might not necessarily, be the step in the right direction here, not for children. The NHS's website said puberty blockers are not available to children and young people for gender incongruence or gender dysphoria because there is not enough evidence of safety and clinical effectiveness. Yeah, there's no evidence, right? There's definitely not enough evidence, okay? This is new science, okay? This is uncharted territory, and the left is trying to pretend that the science is settled. And if you don't agree with that, then you're transphobic, okay? And you're causing kids to lose their lives. Again, ridiculous, okay? It is ridiculous that they have guilt tripped parents into thinking that, hey, if you don't force these drugs on your kids, then you're responsible for their death. And that's just not true, okay? And it's extremely messed up that that's what they're doing. It's extremely messed up that every time the GOP passes a law to protect children, they try to say that, well, blood is on your hand. The GOP passing these anti-trans laws is causing violence against trans kids. And that's just, again, it's simply not true. None of that is grounded in any type of reality or facts, okay? It's just rhetoric, and it's extremely messed up rhetoric. NHS England had previously ordered the London-based gender identity clinic at the Tavistock and Portman Trust to shut its doors amid safety concerns. Research has shown puberty blockers can be linked to poor mental health among trans kids. A 2023 analysis from the University of Essex found that 1/3 of the youth with gender dysphoria experienced a decline in mental health after taking gonadotropin releasing hormone, also called puberty blockers. The original study, which came from NHS's Gender Identity Development Service at Tavistock and University College London hospitals, analyzed 44 children between the ages of 12 and 15 who took puberty blocking drugs. The children were all deemed psychologically stable, but all of them had been classified as having gender dysphoria with a high likelihood of extreme psychological distress with ongoing pubertal development, the study authors wrote in the journal entry. At the time, the researchers determined that the drugs had no impact on the kids' mental health over a 36-month follow-up period. However, a new analysis of the study determined that 34% of the trans youth experienced a decline in mental health while taking puberty blockers. Yeah, so what we have here is worse. It's worse than what you think, okay? So not only did it not have any impact, okay, it didn't really change anything, it didn't help anything. Some of the kids got worse. It made it worse. Again, this is not in line with the leftist narrative, okay? And these are the type of studies that have justified what England is doing. Again, is the left going to come out and say, oh, this is transphobic and, you know, bigotry and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Is this what they're going to say? Again, just imagine how the American medical community is going along with something like this, knowing that is not the right thing to do. It's messed up. It really is. At the same time, 37% reported no change in mental health and 29% noticed an improvement. Some European countries, such as Finland, Norway, and Sweden, have been exercising increased caution on using pharmaceutical interventions on children diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Swedish doctors at a top medical school released a systemic review of available medical literature on providing puberty blockers to children and said its use for treating gender dysphoria should be considered experimental. Yeah, so again, this is all stuff that we've talked about before, okay? The negative effects of these puberty blockers, okay, which, include delay in bone maturation and mineral deposits, which can only be partially restored by the age of 2022, okay? So when these people come out here and say, oh, no, it's reversible, you don't understand, you're just a bigot, right? It can be reversed. There's no harm being done here, right? Again, it's ridiculous. Okay? It's not based on the science. Quote, it's hard to find the words to express just how effing abhorrent banning puberty blockers for trans kids really is. Ignoring the science and pandering to bigots will only cost lives of innocent kids. These kids and parents have been robbed of their autonomy. This person, Joe Maham, says, this is like banning abortion. It won't stop it, and it won't make it less safe for wealthy families, but it will make it less safe for poor families, and it is driven by the same impulse of policing patriarchal gender norms. This person, India Willoughby, says, My advice to families of trans kids is to seek out private sources of puberty blockers, which are totally harmless, lie, and approved by countless legit health bodies. Been around 50 years. It's safe for cis kids. They're safe for trans kids. Meantime, organize a class action and sue NHS. Yeah. So this is what she's calling for. Amazing stuff, right? So again, you know, the activists are going to be upset about this, but I think that if Biden was smart, if Democrats was smart, they would see the writing on the wall and follow suit, right? This is exactly what we need to do in America, okay? This needs to be banned across the country, period, okay? Because again, you're seeing other Western countries take a step back from this and say, no, this is not the way to go. The fact that the United States is still on board with it tells you everything you need to know about what our medical establishment, what they're really actually motivated by, right? And it's not the science, and it's not actually protecting kids and children. It's not doing no harm. That's not what they're motivated by at all. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.